For centuries, the galaxy had been a place of fear and uncertainty. The Xinthar Empire had stretched its dark hand across the stars, their fleets vast and merciless, crushing every resistance that dared to oppose them. No one could match their strength. No one could stop their expansion. The other races learned to bow or disappear into the void. Each world they conquered bent to their will, each species either enslaved or exterminated. And yet there was a whisper in the stars, a secret passed from mouth to mouth across the edges of space, the name of a planet forgotten by most, but now rising in importance: Earth. The request for help had not been made lightly. Desperation colored every word of the transmission as it made its way through the vast expanse of space. Planets that had been devastated by Xinthar raids now turned to Earth for salvation, knowing that their only hope rested on a species they had never encountered, never understood. But the hope was real, their message simple and direct: Earth, we need you. The plea echoed through the universe, carrying the weight of countless lost worlds and dying civilizations. The question was, would Earth hear it? Would the planet respond? Or would it remain silent, forever isolated from the galactic struggles that raged around it? Humanity had kept its presence hidden for so long. It was almost as if it had deliberately chosen to remain unseen for fear of drawing attention to itself, or perhaps because it had not yet found its place among the stars. The galaxy had moved on, without them, assuming Earth was nothing more than an insignificant speck of blue and green in the vastness of space, a relic of a bygone era. But this time something was different. Something had changed as the Xinthar pushed ever closer to Earth's borders. The planet's leaders made a choice, one that would alter the course of galactic history forever. They decided to answer the call. The decision was not made lightly, and it did not come without its own internal conflicts. The human leaders knew they were far outmatched. The Xinthar had fleets and weapons of unimaginable power, but there was something else too, something that no one had accounted for: the human spirit, a power that could not be measured in raw strength or firepower, but one that burned fiercely in the hearts of those who fought for survival. Humanity had faced extinction before, from their own wars to plagues to natural disasters, but they had always risen stronger and more united than before. Their history was written in struggle, but also in resilience. They had conquered the impossible time and time again. And so, under the cover of secrecy and urgency, plans began to take shape. Humanity's greatest minds and their most brilliant engineers came together to devise something beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen: a weapon so powerful that even the Xinthar could not ignore it, a battleship like no other, one that would not just defend Earth, but strike back with overwhelming force. It would carry the weight of humanity's will to survive and its desire for freedom, a freedom that had been long forgotten in the galaxy's dark corners. As the final preparations were made, the question remained whether it would be enough. Would this weapon, built in secret, be the key to tipping the balance, or would it be the last spark of defiance before the inevitable fall? Deep beneath Earth's surface, in hidden military facilities, the largest engineering project in human history had already begun. The world's brightest minds worked tirelessly around the clock in secret bases scattered across the planet's continents, from the coldest ice fields in Antarctica to the hottest deserts of Africa. Secret labs were constructed and teams assembled, their sole mission to build a weapon capable of turning the tide against the mighty Xinthar Empire. Though no one truly knew how it would end, there was only one thing that mattered: victory or death. The humans had made their choice, and their resolve was unshakable. The battleship was not simply a ship, it was a symbol, a beacon of humanity's defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Its construction had been hidden not only from the galaxy, but from most of Earth itself, for fear of the Xinthar discovering it before its completion and obliterating it in a single strike. Humanity's leaders knew the risks, but they also knew the stakes. They could no longer afford to play it safe, no longer stay hidden. While the galaxy burned around them, the war was coming, and Earth had to be ready. Inside the massive underground facilities, teams of engineers and scientists worked day and night in a race against time, with only their determination dragging them forward. They were creating not just advanced technology, but something born of human ingenuity and spirit. The battleship was powered by a new kind of energy, harnessed from the deepest core of Earth's own planet itself, a resource so powerful it could supply nearly infinite energy for weapon shields and engines. It would be the heart of the ship, the key to its invincibility. Meanwhile, Special Forces soldiers were trained in secret bases across the globe, each one handpicked for their skill, their courage, and their loyalty. They were not just soldiers but warriors chosen to fight alongside the battleship. They would board the ship when it was ready to take the battle directly to the Xinthar. 100,000 strong, they would be the human force that would accompany the ship into battle, their hearts full of the same fire and drive that had built the battleship itself. Humanity's soldiers were different. They had faced war on their own world and survived. They knew what it meant to fight for survival, to fight for the future. Above them on the surface, Earth was not yet aware of the scale of the weapon being built under their feet. The population remained largely in the dark about the true nature of the threat that loomed so close. For years, humanity had lived in relative peace, free from the horrors of intergalactic war. Many still believed that the galaxy was a distant dream, a place for science fiction and the imagination, but the truth was starting to leak out as whispers grew louder. The first signs of the Xinthar's approach had been detected, their fleet moving steadily toward the inner systems. In the quiet corners of the world, governments were already in motion, preparing for what was coming. They did not have the luxury of time. That Xinthar would arrive sooner than expected. The battleship had to be ready. The fleets of the Xinthar would soon be at Earth's doorstep. And it was then that humanity would be forced to make its greatest stand, to prove that it was not just a forgotten speck on the edge of the galaxy, but a force capable of changing the course of history forever. As the final components of the battleship were assembled and tested, one question echoed in the minds of those working tirelessly for its completion. Would the galaxy be ready for the might of Earth? Would they stand united behind this new hope? Or would humanity's greatest weapon be their last desperate stand in the face of annihilation? The Xinthar fleet approached Earth like a storm cloud on the horizon, their ships massive and ominous, casting shadows over entire planets. No one had anticipated how quickly they would come, how quickly the galaxy would be dragged into the flames of war. Across the stars, whispers of the Xinthar's advance spread faster than the speed of light. Systems already under their boothiel cried out, while the rest of the galaxy held its breath. No one knew whether Earth would answer, or if it would be swallowed up like so many worlds before it. The fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of a single secret weapon, the battleship, and it was finally ready. In the deepest recesses of Earth's vast underground facilities, the moment the last panel was secured, the battleship hummed to life for the first time. Its immense bulk, a fusion of shimmering metal and alien technology, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as though it were responding to something beyond just its systems. It was not just a ship, it was a culmination of humanity's greatest hopes, fears, and aspirations. The cry of humanity's will to survive, now forged into a weapon of unimaginable power. The first tests of its weaponry were quiet but deadly. The Xinthar had not expected a fight on Earth's soil. They believed their conquest would be quick, that Earth was merely a stepping stone in their campaign for domination. But their scouts had missed one critical detail: the humans' true potential. The first barrage of weapons fired from the battleship reverberated through the atmosphere, sending shockwaves across the region. Xinthar ships, caught unaware, were obliterated in seconds. The energy blasts from the ship were not just powerful, they were devastatingly precise. Each strike seemed to target the very weak points of the Xinthar ships, tearing them apart with ruthless efficiency. In an instant, entire squadrons of their ships were gone. The remaining Xinthar ships scrambled, confused and desperate, not knowing what they had just encountered. From Earth's surface, the atmosphere cracked open as the battleship's engines roared to life, and with a resounding boom, it shot into the sky, rising above the clouds like an ancient titan awakened from its slumber. The space surrounding Earth shimmered with energy as the battleship ascended. Its massive form broke free from the planet's gravitational pull, piercing the heavens with an unstoppable force. The universe held its breath. The Xinthar, in their arrogance, hadn't considered that Earth, isolated for so long, might have been building something far beyond their comprehension. The first Xinthar ship to break through Earth's atmosphere was caught in the battleship's crosshairs, vaporized instantly in a single pulse of energy. A second ship, then a third, followed the same fate. Earth's battleship was not only a symbol of defiance, it was the embodiment of destruction itself. But the Xinthar were not easily dissuaded. Shocked but not frightened, they quickly regrouped, launching their forces in retaliation. Waves of ships, from the smallest scout vessels to enormous dreadnoughts, charged toward Earth, determined to overwhelm this unknown threat. They had made the mistake of thinking they could conquer Earth like any other world. Now they would learn how wrong they were. Above Earth, the first major battle unfolded in space. The Xinthar fleet attacked in waves, their ships circling like predators closing in on a wounded animal. But Earth's battleship wasn't wounded. It was far from defenseless. As the Xinthar ships came closer, Earth's battleship seemed to anticipate their movements. Every shot, every maneuver executed with an impossible precision. It wasn't just a ship, it was a message to the universe. Humanity would not be ruled. The battleship turned the tide of the battle in minutes. Xinthar ships, once thought unbeatable, were now reduced to debris. And as the chaos unfolded above Earth, the galaxy would soon realize that the tide had already begun to turn, that the ultimate request, Earth's final stand, had begun. The first Xinthar response to Earth's unexpected arrival was one of brutal retaliation. They had underestimated humanity, believing that their vast fleets and superior technology would be more than enough to snuff out this lone, untested force. But the sight of Earth's battleship, a gleaming colossus of destruction, changed everything. The Xinthar fleet was large, but their arrogance clouded their judgment. They underestimated not just the power of Earth's weapon, but the ingenuity and resolve that lay behind it. Within hours, Earth's battleship had proven itself far more than a match for the initial Xinthar waves. Their fleets scattered, their warships burning like comets as Earth's energy pulses tore through them with surgical precision. The Xinthar, in shock, fell back to regroup, but the damage was already done. Their initial assault was in ruins, and their once unstoppable fleet had been forced to retreat. Earth's message was clear. It would not go down without a fight, and its defenses would be formidable. But the Xinthar were not the type to back down. They had tasted defeat, but they had never known surrender. Within moments of their retreat, they were plotting their next move, planning an even deadlier assault. The Xinthar commanders called for reinforcements, armadas from all corners of their empire, fleets larger than anything Earth had ever witnessed. A retaliation was coming, and it would be overwhelming. Back on Earth, the sense of victory was short-lived. Despite the overwhelming success of their initial strike, the human leadership knew that the war was far from over. They had bought themselves time, but at a cost. The Xinthar would not take this insult lightly. As they gathered intelligence from the wreckage of the Xinthar ships, humanity learned that the enemy had access to a fleet that could not only match but dwarf anything Earth had ever constructed. The next few days were a blur of preparations. Earth's battleship remained in orbit, its weapons systems primed for the inevitable second strike. Below, engineers worked tirelessly to refine their technology and patch the few weaknesses that had been exposed in the first battle. Soldiers, once confined to simulations and training exercises, now readied themselves for a war that was about to escalate beyond anyone's expectations. Then, as expected, the Xinthar returned. This time, their forces were unlike anything humanity had yet faced. Hundreds of ships, from the smallest frigates to monstrous dreadnoughts, flooded the system like a dark cloud descending upon Earth. The Xinthar were angry, their pride wounded, and their thirst for vengeance was palpable. They had learned from their first failure and were prepared to obliterate Earth's defenses. This battle would be their redemption. The first wave hit Earth's atmosphere with the force of a tidal wave. The battleship fired on instinct, targeting the largest of the enemy ships first, its weapons tearing through the dark expanse of space. The void between Earth and the Xanthar was filled with flashing lights and the soundless shrieks of war. The battleship's energy pulses cut through the Xanthar fleet like a scythe through wheat, leaving behind shattered debris and broken hulls. But the Xanthar, now fully coordinated, adapted quickly. Their ships split into smaller groups, darting and weaving to avoid Earth's fire, launching waves of torpedoes and disruptor beams in return. The skies over Earth filled with fire as the two forces collided in a spectacle of chaos. Explosions ripped through space, sending shockwaves that reverberated through the surrounding planets. The first hours of the battle were brutal, with Earth's battleship standing firm, taking hit after hit and retaliating with devastating efficiency. Yet the sheer number of enemy ships began to take its toll. Earth's ship could fight, but the Xanthar were relentless. Their reinforcements kept coming, wave after wave, overwhelming Earth's defenses with their sheer numbers and unyielding fury. But Earth's battleship had one advantage that Xanthar could not comprehend: its crew. Each human aboard knew what they were fighting for. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their future. They weren't soldiers fighting in a foreign war. They were families, communities, civilizations. The battleship was not just an extension of human ingenuity, it was the embodiment of their will. The crew's determination was as much a weapon as the ship itself. As the battle raged, Earth's ship dug deeper into its reserves, pushing past the limits of what was possible. Every shot that landed was a testament to human resolve, and as the Xanthar forces closed in for the kill, they had no idea just how dangerous their enemy truly was. The battleship was not just a weapon. It was a symbol, and its strike was far from finished. Humanity's defiance would burn as brightly as the fires in space. The battle above Earth raged on, and though the Xanthar had suffered devastating losses, they were far from defeated. They continued to throw wave after wave of reinforcements at Earth's defenses, each battle pushing humanity's resolve to the brink. But Earth's battleship was proving to be more than just a war machine. It was a rallying point. Across the galaxy, planets that had long been under the cruel boot of the Xanthar Empire saw the first glimmer of hope. News of Earth's victory spread like wildfire, carried on the pulse of the cosmos. And soon, messages flooded in from worlds far and wide. The first to respond were the scattered remnants of the resistance, once fragmented and weak, now emboldened by the sight of Earth's triumph. No longer did they have to hide in the shadows, afraid of the Xanthar's wrath. Earth's battleship, with its unstoppable might, had given them a beacon of hope, and they were ready to fight. Systems that had been under the Xanthar's control for centuries began to send their soldiers, fleets, and resources to Earth's cause. The galaxy, once resigned to Xanthar rule, was waking up. In underground bunkers across former Xanthar-controlled worlds, resistance leaders gathered their forces, reuniting once dispersed armies into a unified front. From the asteroid colonies of Krenath 5 to the lush forests of Turellus 3, citizens who had spent decades in fear of the Xanthar came together, offering what little they had to join the war effort. The galaxy's oppressed were rising. Earth had shown them it was possible to defy the Empire. But as the resistance grew stronger, so too did the Xanthar's response. They had never been ones to back down, and now that their reputation had been shaken, they were determined to crush this new rebellion before it could gain any real strength. The Empire's supreme leaders, now reeling from their early failures, devised a strategy to put an end to Earth's growing influence. The Xanthar were about to unleash their most brutal assault yet, a coordinated attack across multiple fronts, aimed at shattering the new resistance and crushing Earth's battleship once and for all. On Earth, humanity's leaders were not blind to the danger. They had known from the beginning that their success in the first battle was only a temporary reprieve. The Xanthar would adapt, learn from their mistakes, and strike back with overwhelming force. But humanity had one advantage that Xanthar could not replicate: unity. For the first time in centuries, humans had come together with a singular purpose, not just to survive, but to protect their home and their future. As more resistance forces rallied to Earth's cause, Earth's battleship became a symbol of that unity. It wasn't just a weapon. It was the heart of a growing coalition, a force born from the will of a united galaxy. Every successful strike, every enemy ship destroyed, was a message to the Xanthar that their empire was not as invincible as they had believed. The resistance might have been small at first, but now it was swelling into an unstoppable force, and the Xanthar could no longer ignore it. As Earth's forces prepared for the inevitable assault, the galaxy itself seemed to change. No longer were the planets scattered and divided, each one alone in the darkness of space. They had come together, drawn together by the promise of freedom. Earth had answered the call, and now it was the galaxy's turn to do the same. The Xanthar may have thought their power was unchallenged, but now they faced a united front, one they would have to fight for it if they wanted to maintain their rule. The next battle would not be like the last. The resistance was no longer fighting in the shadows. They were fighting side by side with Earth's battleship, and this time they were going to make the Xanthar regret underestimating them. The storm that had begun with Earth's defiance was growing larger, and soon it would engulf the galaxy itself. The Xanthar Empire would find that there was one thing they could never conquer: humanity's will to fight. The Xanthar Empire, though shaken, was far from broken. The initial losses had not only stung their pride, but also threatened their grip on the galaxy. Yet they were a species forged in war, and their ruthlessness had kept them in power for millennia. Now, with Earth's battleship and the resistance emboldening the galaxy's oppressed, the Xanthar knew they could no longer afford to hesitate. They had to strike back with everything they had, and they did not plan to fail again. The Xanthar fleet gathered in the outer rim, larger than ever before. This new wave would be their last attempt to crush the rebellion in one final decisive blow. They were bringing every resource they had: more ships, more weapons, more firepower than Earth's defenders could ever hope to stand against. And this time, their strategy was simple: overwhelm them with numbers and force. They would not make the same mistake twice. In a distant part of the galaxy, Earth's leaders and resistance commanders gathered for the impending battle. They had known this moment was coming. The Xanthar would never stop until they were utterly defeated. Humanity's victory in the first few engagements had earned them the respect and fear of the Empire, but now they faced the Xanthar's full might. The resistance, though larger and more coordinated than ever, was still relatively small compared to the Empire's vast fleets. The battleship was humanity's greatest weapon, but even it would be tested like never before. On Earth, the preparations for war reached a fever pitch. Soldiers trained relentlessly, refining their skills in simulation after simulation, knowing that what awaited them in the skies above was unlike anything they had faced before. Engineers worked around the clock to upgrade Earth's battleship, enhancing its shields, weaponry, and engines to prepare for the upcoming storm. The Xanthar would strike hard, and humanity had to be ready to meet them head-on. The new wave of the Xanthar fleet arrived in Earth's orbit with terrifying speed. Hundreds of ships, each larger and more menacing than the last, filled the sky, blocking out the stars. Their vast numbers were enough to intimidate even the most seasoned warriors. The fleet came at Earth from all sides, launching a devastating barrage of weapons that lit up the darkness of space. Their energy blasts tore through the atmosphere, creating a ring of fire around the planet. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the force of their attack, sending tremors across the world below. Yet Earth's battleship stood firm in the face of the onslaught. With a deafening roar, the battleship fired back, its energy weapons lighting up the sky like a deadly lightning storm. The first wave of Xanthar ships were torn apart by the blasts, their shields failing under the sheer intensity of the strike. But more ships came, undeterred. The Xanthar pressed forward relentlessly, refusing to retreat despite the mounting losses. The first hours of the battle were brutal. Earth's forces, though outnumbered, fought with everything they had. The resistance fighters, fueled by the hope of freedom, launched attacks from every angle, coordinated with the battleship to disrupt the Xanthar's assault. The battleship itself weaved through the Xanthar fleet, its weapons cutting down enemies left and right. But as more ships entered the fray, the sheer scale of the Xanthar fleet began to take its toll. Though the battleship held strong, it was slowly being overwhelmed. Every shot it fired took down another enemy ship, but for each one destroyed, two more appeared in its place. The Xanthar had adapted. They had learned from their earlier mistakes, now coordinating their attacks to target the battleship's weak points. The enormous ship began to show signs of strain. Its energy reserves were dropping, its shields flickering under the intense bombardment. On Earth, the command centers were frantic, with officers scrambling to find a solution. The battleship was holding its ground, but it couldn't keep this up forever. They needed reinforcements, more firepower, or they risked losing everything. The resistance, too, was beginning to feel the weight of the Xanthar's power. Their fighters had already suffered heavy losses. The battlefield was becoming a graveyard of metal and burning wreckage. As the battle reached its most critical moment, the unthinkable happened. The final wave of Xanthar ships revealed a secret weapon, an enormous, heavily fortified dreadnought, more advanced and powerful than any ship humanity had ever encountered. It moved like a shadow through the battle, immune to Earth's most powerful attacks. The dreadnoughts, weapons fired with unrelenting force, striking the battleship with devastating blows. Earth's symbol of defiance was faltering, its energy reserves near depleted. The Empire had thrown its final punch, and it seemed that, for the first time, Earth's resolve was in danger of breaking. But in the chaos, a small yet significant spark of hope remained. As the battleship's crew fought to keep it operational, they knew that the fight was not over, not yet. The tide had turned, but humanity was not ready to surrender. The final battle had begun. The enormous dreadnought, the pride of the Xanthar fleet, loomed over Earth's battleship, casting an oppressive shadow across the battlefield. Its dark, angular form radiated an aura of invincibility, and with each passing second, it unleashed weapons of unimaginable power. Earth's defenses were buckling, its shields flickering under the relentless barrage. The battleship groaned as it absorbed blow after blow, its once brilliant hull now scorched and battered. Inside the battleship, the crew worked feverishly to keep the ship operational. Officers barked commands, technicians scrambled to repair systems, and soldiers manned their stations, determined to hold the line. But the reality was undeniable. The battleship was on the edge of collapse. Its power core was nearing critical failure, and its weapons systems were losing their efficiency. It was a race against time, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. Above them, the Xanthar fleet was relentless, and their numbers seemed endless. Each ship they destroyed was replaced by two more, and the dreadnought led the charge, cutting through the resistance forces like a knife through butter. The Xanthar knew that if they could destroy the battleship, they would destroy humanity's will to resist. It was their final gambit, and they intended to see it through. But Earth's forces were not so easily broken. The resistance, now fully entrenched alongside the battleship, refused to give in. Though their numbers had dwindled, their resolve was unshakable. Soldiers from every corner of the galaxy fought alongside Earth's finest, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. The freedom of their worlds rested on this battle. They would not let the Xanthar win. In the heart of Earth's battleship, the ship's captain stood resolute in the command center, watching the chaos unfold. His hands gripped the controls, and his eyes, filled with determination, scanned the screen as Xanthar ships circled like vultures. But despite the overwhelming odds, he had one final trick left, a last desperate strategy that could turn the tide. "We're not finished yet," he muttered under his breath. With a deep breath, the captain issued the order. The ship's core, powered by the energy of Earth itself, was going to be pushed beyond its limits. The battleship's engines roared as the power surged through its systems, forcing every ounce of energy into its weapons. The dreadnought may have been powerful, but the battleship was a force of nature, and humanity had one last, desperate chance to prove that even in the face of annihilation, their spirit could not be broken. The massive ship surged forward with a roar, cutting through the Xanthar lines like a living beast. Every shot fired from its cannons was a beacon of defiance, and though its weapons were weaker than before, each blast carried the weight of humanity's will. The dreadnought fired back, and the battleship took hit after hit, its shields nearly collapsing. But it kept moving, pushing forward toward the heart of the Xanthar fleet. The resistance fighters, rallying behind the battleship's courage, launched a final, coordinated strike. Their small ships darted through the chaos, their pilots determined to buy the battleship enough time. With precision and bravery, they attacked the Xanthar, disrupting their formations and forcing them to divert their attention. Every fighter that fell became a symbol of the cost of freedom, and though their numbers were few, they fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. As the battleship closed in on the dreadnought, its massive form now visible in front of them, the captain gave the final command. Fire everything. The battleship's remaining power surged one last time. Its main cannon, a weapon like no other, charged and fired with such force that it seemed to split space itself. The blast collided with the dreadnought's shields, sending shockwaves that rattled the very fabric of reality. The Xanthar ship staggered, its shields buckling under the immense power of the strike. And then, with a final, glorious explosion, the dreadnought's hull fractured, breaking apart in a burst of fire and debris. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. The Xanthar fleet, witnessing the destruction of their most powerful vessel, faltered. The remaining ships hesitated, as if unsure of their next move, and in that moment of uncertainty, the resistance seized the opportunity. Earth's forces launched a renewed assault, pushing the Xanthar back, their momentum shattered. The Xanthar had underestimated the strength of human resolve, and now they were beginning to pay the price. But the cost had been immense. The battleship, its engines drained and its systems failing, was barely holding together. Earth's forces had won a critical victory, but they were not out of danger yet. The Xanthar fleet, though staggered, still outnumbered them. And with every second that passed, the battleship's stability grew more uncertain. As Earth's forces regrouped, they knew the war was far from over. This was a single battle, not the final victory. But in the heart of the galaxy, the message